All right, we'll go ahead and crack into it. Thanks everybody for joining today. If you haven't been to a webinar with Seth and I or Webgility and Nerd Enterprises before, welcome. We're happy to have you. If you have, welcome back. So today we're going to be talking about this. I'm gonna say omnichannel, but there's a lot more to unpack there, and I want to define what omnichannel means. Ultimately, the biggest takeaway from today's webinar is going to be centering your business around the customer experience and how to sort of scale your business based off of the customer lifecycle and using tools to kind of enable that process. So to do some introductions, as always, I am John May. I am the face and voice of Webgility. I've been with Webgility for just under 3 years now, and I do a lot of the video and social content. And I'll let Seth introduce himself for those who are unaware.
And I'm Seth David from the world famous Nerd Enterprises Incorporated, and I create content for the accounting industry in the form of QuickBooks videos and other productivity software videos and tutorials and courses and so on.
Awesome. And so together with our powers combined, we talk a lot about how accounting works in the e-commerce industry and how to kind of streamline that, and then just the overall conversation of scaling your business and the nuances of I guess streamlining using technologies, because it all really relates to each other and it all kind of coexists in the same ecosystem. So to go over the agenda today, we'll start off with, as I always do, I like to go over the basics, kind of define some general terms so that we can all understand essentially what we're talking about and kind of get through the buzzwords. And then we'll move on to essentially relating all these definitions and this term omnichannel back to the customer experience, but relating everything back to your customers. And then moving through the life cycle, we'll talk about how to engage with your customers or your prospects in that life cycle. And then finally, kind of end with some of the popular tools or the tools that we would recommend that are out there for you to take advantage of. So to start, we'll go again with the basics. We just want to define some of these terms and understand what it is that we're talking about. So omnichannel. I know for those of you who may, if you were on our last webinar, this is kind of a part two, essentially, of the last webinar, which was more focused on multi-channel. So to define multi-channel, that is generally the circumstance where a business owner has multiple stores, multiple e-commerce stores or brick and mortar stores that they take advantage of to get that multi-channel environment. Now, omnichannel, where multi-channel is essentially like a piece of the puzzle, it's a piece of your business. Obviously, there's more to it than just the places that you sell, but it is more about everything that goes on around your stores. And the stores are a part of being omnichannel, but there's so much more to it. And really, it all relates back to scaling your business by providing an environment for your customers that enables them to A, purchase your product easily, and two, to come back as a repeat customer and increase your brand awareness through like good reviews. So a lot of things that are affected by this omni-channel idea. Um, Again, compared to multi-channel, multi-channel is just again that little piece of the puzzle where omni-channel is the whole enchilada, so to speak. And something that you've probably heard me talk about a lot, because I do a lot of talking, surprise, but I've mentioned the term tech stack before. I use a lot of tech jargon because I exist within this tech space, but I want to stop and talk about tech stack because it is important to define. It's a buzzword. It's definitely part of that tech jargon, but when I talk about tech stack, we're not even necessarily talking about all of the softwares that you pay for or like a very specific group of tools that you use. Tech stack, in my opinion, is anything, any tools, any workflows, anything that you do to kind of help scale or optimize your business. So you'll probably hear me talk about tech stack a little bit here, but that's what I mean is just employing everything that you have at your disposal to help grow or streamline or understand your business as a whole. All right. And so moving on to creating a full circle experience. When I say full circle experience, I mean creating that ecosystem for your potential customers or your current customers to kind of enable them to purchase more or purchase for the first time, or even just understand what it is that you do or sell or offer as a business. So I think it's obvious to kind of point out that without customers, we wouldn't be in business, any of us. So just to get the easy stuff out of the way, it all comes back to the customer, right? Um, it's easy to relate this idea of omnichannel, or this idea of connecting everything that you have to your bottom line. It's easy to say, well, I connected my accounting and I connected my shipping and I connected my reporting, and now I saved so much money, I saved so much time. That's a very easy way of looking at it. But I think you can look deeper at the ways that it helps your customer to, again, buy or find your product online. And I think that's the better way of looking at it. It allows you to understand your customer better and allows you to service them better. So how can we, whether you're in a brick and mortar or an e-commerce store, use tools and technology to improve that customer experience? And that's essentially what the rest of this conversation is going to be, because having a good experience as a customer means that you're probably going to be happy, which means you're probably going to purchase more. And that can increase via like average order values. They might purchase larger quantities of your items. They will return for repeat buys, leave positive reviews, and kind of tell their friends about you. So all these things to say, again, creating a good ecosystem is good for your business. All right, and we can just take a look at the customer lifecycle itself real quick. This is generally what a customer lifecycle is going to look like. You start off with the reach or the brand awareness that you're trying to generate for your business. So putting yourself out there via advertising so that people can find your product or your service, leading to the acquisition stage, which is giving people content or ways to get to your product and to get to your site so that they can see what you offer, which leads to the conversion stage, which is giving them the easy ability to check out, or allowing them to see that you have gained their trust through various signals on your website. And then the last two, I like to kind of lump these two together: retention and loyalty. This is where a lot of businesses go wrong, because you think, oh, I got the sale, we're good to go. And it's not always the case, right? You want people to stick around. You want people to continue to re-engage with your content, with your products, and feel happy about their purchase and kind of be evangelized towards your product. I know, Seth, you and I were talking a little bit about that proverbial story of the bicycle shop, if you want to dive into that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, first of all, if we go back to stage one here, arguably the first transaction happens here before any money actually changes hands, right? Especially when we think about omni-channel, we think about how our brands sort of live every day now, right? We reach out to people through social media. Using my own company as an example, for a long time now, I've created content. People choose my content, let's say, over somebody else who's got similar content because they like my style. They like the way I teach. In a sense, that's the first transaction. They've transacted, they've agreed in a sense, informally, to use my videos to learn how to improve their skills, right? Just to put it at the most basic level. So that's really the first true transaction, right? Then after they've seen my stuff enough times, they start moving more and more into phase two and phase three here, to where eventually they sign up. There are people who come to me who, the first time they're signing up to buy something of mine, and they tell me they've been watching my videos for like 10 years. So sometimes it can take 10 years from that initial transaction till an actual conversion happens, in the sense that we're defining that based on, where money is now changing hands, right? And so I think it's important to recognize when and where and how that first transaction is taking place. And like you said, John, it's really about building trust. And it really comes down to thinking in terms of the lifetime value of a client, not just that first transaction. And that brings up Jay Abraham's story, which is based on the idea that a guy comes into a bicycle shop to get his kid's first bike. And the store owner can clearly see that he's excited about it, and probably could sell him the most expensive bike in the store, just taking advantage of the guy's excitement, because the guy probably just wants the best bike for his kid. And and instead, what the guy does is, the guy says to the father, he's very practical, and in a way, he's protecting his customer. That's really what this looks like. Is you think in terms of, how do I protect my clients, even if from themselves, right? And what I mean by that is, he says to the father, he says, look, this is your kid's first bike. He's probably just learning how to ride, or maybe he's going to just learn on this bicycle and he's probably going to fall and the bicycle is going to get damaged. So let's not go crazy. Let's get you something that's inexpensive but very safe. And while we're at it, and here comes the upsell, increasing the average order, we should get him all the gear that he needs, the helmet and anything else we need to protect him from the inevitable fall he's going to have. It's par for the course, right? Um, and so the difference there is that initial sale may have been less because he didn't sell the most expensive bike in the store. But what he's won now is a customer for life, because that father is going to walk out of there kind of realizing, now this guy literally had my back and my kids, right? Because he protected me. He kept me safe from having to, ruin a very expensive bike and have to go back and replace it and God knows what. Plus, having walked away from that experience, it's not as likely, or not necessarily likely, that the father would have come back there for his next bicycle. But having gone through this experience where the guy protected him, he's going to buy every other bicycle that he ever buys from that bicycle owner, because the difference is he built trust. He earned the guy's trust by showing him, by telling him something he didn't have to tell him, to protect him and to be practical about it. And that's the kind of sort of protecting the client that wins and breeds that trust, so that the client will stay with you for life. I mean, I've seen examples in my own experience where there are times for sure where I might have been onboarding a client and I realized at some point I wasn't doing the best I could. I wasn't paying as much attention as I could or should be. But what I was able to do in those moments to turn that around is to just be honest with the client and say, hey, by the way, I know I'm not paying as much attention as I need to. Rest assured, I'm going to make this up to you. And then of course I have to follow through and actually do that. And I've had experiences where, I've kept clients because of being that honest and forthcoming with them and calling it out before they could or had to. Right. So, I mean, these are some thoughts I have as far as really thinking about the lifetime value of the client and the difference in terms of how you approach things on the very first sale. In other words, you don't go for getting as much out of them as you possibly can, right? Go for the lifetime value.
I love that. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And while a lot of what we're talking about today is centered around the tech stack and the technology and tools that you use as a business owner, it is important to understand that it is, again, not all about the tools that you use or the places that you sell or the fancy stuff that you have. A lot of it is strategic. There's a lot of things that you can do to improve the customer experience just from like a listening perspective, understanding what the customer needs. Go ahead, Seth.
And real quick, just speaking to what I just explained and bring it into the context of the tech stack, it ties in very directly when you think about it, because one place where I think a lot of us may actually be failing our clients is we have a tech stack, a set of tools that we're using with the client, and we don't do a great job of onboarding the client into those tools. So one of the first things I teach people, especially bookkeepers and accountants that I work with, is when you sign on a new client, the first thing you should do, and it should be the first step in your onboarding SOP, right? Your standard operating procedure for how you onboard clients. The first thing you should do is schedule a Zoom call with them where any of the tools that you're using that's going to impact them, you have them share their screen and you walk them through and make sure they understand exactly how to access and get into that tool and exactly how you expect them to use it with you. So if you're going to use Slack, like I do with every client, then you ask them, have you used Slack before? Yeah. Okay, great. Are you very familiar with it? Are you, like a newbie with it? And, like dig deeper, make sure you understand exactly what their comfort level is going to be. And bottom line, either way, get them on a call within the first week after signing and have them share their screen. So, they're paying attention, have them pull up Slack or whatever tool it is and make sure that they've gotten in successfully, that you've seen them log in. So, for sure they know how to log. Don't just take their word for it. Because I've had clients do that where, oh yeah, I've got this. And then like 2 weeks later, I realize they have no clue because they're not responding to things. Right. And they're
Yeah.
just too embarrassed to admit it. So don't even let them be embarrassed about it. Just even whatever their comfort level is, whatever they say, get them on a call, walk them through, become an instructor of sorts, and make sure they understand how to work with you.
Yeah, I love that. That is really sage wisdom, I think. And again, it applies to a lot of areas of your business. Just understanding what the customer needs, understanding what you can do to improve that customer experience and get something or get somebody to continue to evangelize your product or your services, so that they come back or speak highly of your business and leave a positive review. So now we'll talk about some of the other ways that you can engage with your customers in this life cycle, right? Because there are all these different stages in which your customer can be engaged with, or ways that you can kind of get in front of the actions that they're taking or the things that they're doing and improve the experience for them. Um, so let's start with brand awareness. So one of the biggest things that you can do is have an actual brand identity. This is a topic that we could have an entire webinar on, or a series of webinars on, because there's a lot that goes into branding, obviously. I mean, there's from logo creation to the colors that you use to the segment of your customer base, the finding where your customers exist at, the niche that you're in. There's a lot that you could be doing for your brand. And that's not to say that if you haven't done all these things that you don't have a brand, but there is something to be said for having that solid brand identity that is consistent across, and this is to the next point, all of the channels that you have. So if you have an Amazon store and a brick and mortar store and a Shopify store, if you have all of those channels or those avenues that customers can engage with you on, and you have them consistently aligned with your brand values and your brand imaging, it creates a level of trust, usually implicit, right? Like it's something that is subconscious. They see that you have all these stores, which is great to start with, and then they see that you have a solid brand identity that is consistent, and that lends to the idea that you're a credible business. Whether you are or not, it lends to that idea. Um, so I think starting with the basics and making sure that you have an actual brand, that you've thought about the type of person that you want to appeal to, the type of person you want to sell your product to, and then understand what it is they look for in a brand. Like if you're a bookstore and you know that a good segment of your customer base likes fantasy novels, it might be worth it to invest in some fantasy imagery or things that align with the interests in that niche, right? So a little bit of an introductory thing there, but still super important foundationally for your business. The next thing I would say would be that search engine optimization. This is something that generally most people aren't going to be taking the helm on at a certain point, especially if your business has gotten to the point where it's large enough that you're running handfuls of campaigns and you're spending thousands of dollars on ad spend. Generally you'll just hire somebody to do your SEO for you, which is a totally acceptable thing to do. We can't all do everything. But it is still a very important part of your store. Not even just if you're in e-commerce. If you're on the internet in general and you want to be seen, you need to optimize your search engine strategy and have your keywords lined out and understand where you fall into the niche and which keywords you need to be paying towards and kind of putting yourself out there for. Similarly, ad campaigns, they kind of work in tandem together, search engine optimization and ads, but they can extend beyond just keyword optimization, and you start to get into the realm of like TikTok vertical ads, ads on Meta, ads on Instagram. So again, this is another one of those areas that you can hire a person for specifically, and all of these areas you could have outsourced, but the idea is that you build all of these things out alongside your business to increase that brand awareness. One last thing that I'll mention here is sponsored events. It's something that you see a lot more on social media these days, paying influencers to I guess market your brand. This is a lot more common with things like clothing or household items. You'll see influencers kind of do a sponsored ad where they get the item for free and they showcase themselves using it. So that's a very useful tool, especially in today's day and age, in increasing that organic awareness. A lot of times, even though those ads are marked as ads, they're legally generally required to be listed as an ad in the app. It's easy to forget that you're watching an ad when you're looking at your favorite influencer use some shiny new thing. So just keep that in mind. It's always an evolving landscape when we talk about social media and ads and marketing in general. But all these things are good places to start if you're looking to increase that brand awareness. And just a little tidbit, these kind of concepts that we're talking about, these next couple slides, are just the general ideas or the ways that you can engage with your customers or with your prospects. And we'll get into some specific tools towards the end. If you're curious as to how you can actually do these things that we're talking about, we'll get into the specifics here in a little bit. All right. And the next stage of that life cycle that we talked about, I like to lump these two together, just like I like to lump the retention and loyalty together. For acquisition and conversion, this is the transition from that brand awareness into them actually being on your site or in your store and looking at your products and being interested, essentially. With the final part of that being the conversion, them actually purchasing your product. So things that you can do here. We'll start with product listing optimization. One thing that you could do, and something that is way more accessible than it used to be, I would say, is optimize the descriptions of all of your products. Make sure that they are as simple, straightforward, and descriptive as possible. You don't want to keyword stuff. You don't want to make a novel out of whatever you're selling. You want to make it as appealing as possible in as short of an amount of time as possible. And one of the ways that you could do this is through ChatGPT or some AI that you can prompt to give you a product description. I don't know that I would use AI for the entire description and to just copy and paste it, but it is a good place to start if you're looking to ideate and kind of refine your product descriptions and make sure that things are, I guess, as clean as possible. Other ways or some other areas that you could look at when you're looking to optimize this acquisition and conversion kind of window is content marketing. So creating blog posts or content that drives people to your site through some value that you're providing to the customer or the prospect, something that they might be interested in. This can be a little bit abstract depending on what niche you're in. When it comes to clothing, generally something like this looks like a blog talking about trends, maybe in the industry for clothing or apparel. It gets a lot easier when you're talking about higher concepts like technology or things that have a lot more, I guess, depth to them in terms of the subject matter. But content marketing is a super valuable way to drive people to your site. And a lot of the software that's out there today, if you're using some sort of social media manager, can sort of take some content that you've already written and turn it into something else. So if you already have a social media post, you can have it kind of spit out a blog post that goes along with it. So there's a lot of flexibility there, and you don't necessarily have to do all the work yourself. Next thing would be drip campaigns. Set up some email campaigns for people that have shown any interest in your brand. Where you've done that brand awareness, if you're able to capture their email address in any way, you can, as long as you've got consent, you can start to email them and let them know about future deals that you have, let them know about current deals that you have, new releases, stuff like that. Discounts and coupons, very obvious thing that you could do to increase that conversion rate. Payment processing is one that people don't generally consider offhand. Payment processing, today's day and age, most payment processors you use are going to accept every card, but making sure that you're going with a reputable payment processor and that you have something that makes the process as easy as possible for the end user is going to increase that conversion rate. Making sure your checkout flow is streamlined. This means like putting the checkout button or the add to cart button in a very easy place to navigate. Don't make it a hassle for people to check out. Don't make them have to click 5 times. Things like that, just from a usability perspective, are always going to increase the conversion rate because there's less friction for people when they're navigating your site. I mentioned trust signals a little bit earlier. Trust signals are the badges like a secure site lock, an SSL certificate on your website, anything that you can show that you've done the work to make sure that your site is secure, that it's safe, that you work with trusted partners. Anything that allows people to see that you're a credible business is going to, again, drive them to feel more compelled to buy your product. Obviously, don't lie. Don't just paste an SSL certificate that you found on Google Images, but anything that you can signal to your customers that you're a reputable business is going to help increase this conversion rate. And again, reviews, super easy way to get people to trust you is having your reviews either listed on popular review sites, on Google reviews, Yelp, stuff like that. If you have a brick and mortar, lots of places that you can do to get your name out there.
And testimonials are super effective, which
Yes.
is kind of a
Definitely.
certain kind of review. And one interesting thing that I've learned over the years is I used to get people writing comments, and sometimes there'd be typos in their comments, and I would want to correct them. And my design guy taught me not to correct them because A, it is actually authentic, and B, it makes it look more authentic because it doesn't look like it's been polished up. It's, so it was interesting to me to think that actually people trust it more when they see like testimonials like that with typos in them. Of course, don't make up typos just to make it look, So
Yeah,
again,
that's
obviously,
another thing is like the rage bait that exists in today's social media environment too is like this isn't necessarily something that I would recommend because it is a very specific style of advertising, but um yeah, a good way that some people get engagement or that people garner interest on social media specifically, I'd say is where you see this like Facebook and Instagram, but purposefully not necessarily putting misleading information out there, but having typos or having something that is like very obviously false or fake inside your video or something that you know is going to trigger people gets people to engage with your product. Again, I don't love it. I don't think that that's a cool way of doing business, but it is part of the business landscape. It would be kind of disingenuous not to
there's a
talk
way
about it.
you could do it that works, but you have to be very careful. There have been a few cases where brands clearly very intentionally publish like a misprint, and you knew it was a misprint, or you might have like second guessed it, like, wait, did they really mean to post that? And you eventually learn that they did do it very intentionally because the whole purpose was to get people talking about, like, I can't believe they made that mistake and let that go out there. Meanwhile, what they've accomplished successfully, and if you do it right, there's a sort of artful way to do it, then you can generate a buzz in terms of people initially just talking about this typo or misprint or whatever it was. But meanwhile, now you've got a whole bunch of people commenting and talking about your brand, which is something you talked about, I think, a slide or two ago, right? And
Mhm.
branding, when it comes right down to it, is about doing things that make people remember you. That's why I didn't want to just create a company called Seth's Accounting, because who's going to remember that? It's freaking boring, right?
Yeah.
But Nerd Enterprises is something memorable, and it also spoke a lot to how I wanted to present myself. There's, like you said earlier, there's so much about the way you build a brand. Your brand is like your company's personality, and people will remember you by that. I went out there with a brand like Nerd Enterprises, knowing there was going to be a certain element out there, let's call it, that would be turned off, right? Because they would think, oh, he's in accounting and he's not taking it seriously or something like that. And it's like, that's exactly who I don't want, as a client. Are the sort of sticks in the mud who take themselves way too seriously. And I for a long time in the beginning, I had a tagline underneath the name Nerd Enterprises where it said "funny name, serious business." To put that message out there, like, yes, we have fun with this stuff. If it's not fun, I don't want to do it. But we also do take it seriously. In other words, we know there's a time and place, and we take it seriously when and where it needs to be taken. So there's a whole lot. That's just one little example of a lot of other pieces that exist under the brand Nerd Enterprises, where a lot of thought went into it. It wasn't just like I woke up one day and said, "Yeah, this is what I'm going to do."
Yeah, yeah, right. And I like what you said about your brand being a personality. I think ultimately, whatever you decide to do, whatever business you decide to run, having a brand that does stand out is obviously easier said than done, right? Like it's easy for us to say, like, be different, when there's billions of people in the world and millions of businesses.
By the way, a great example of this is Wendy's. I don't care if you
Yeah,
don't like their food, but if
yeah,
you follow their social media, people follow their social media just because their social media is hilarious. The stuff that they put out there is a perfect example of what we're talking about, where you read some stuff and you're like, wait, did they actually just say that? It's they do it for the shock value, and they almost purposely make it look like some intern took over their social media account and started typing like ridiculous
yep.
stuff, posting on their social media, and it's hilarious. And it has nothing to do with, like, there's nothing about it that says go and buy our burgers. It just
It's
all
being
attracts.
relatable.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It builds a community. It attracts people who want to hang out with them just because they're funny. And then guess what? Guess what's going to be top of mind if I start getting hungry later and I just spent 2 hours going through their social media feeds because it was hilarious.
Yeah, yeah, and that's Wendy's definitely was like the pioneer of that type of engagement, right? Like they were one of the first social media accounts to like really stand out in that way. And you see it a lot more lately, but it's just become it's sort of the meta game of e-commerce and just marketing in general. Another one that's more recently been popular is like Scrub Daddy. I don't know if you guys know who the company Scrub Daddy. They make the smiley face shaped sponges. You wouldn't think that it would be this good on social media, but they have such high engagement. Their posts get so many shares and follows and stuff because they make relatable jokes. That's really all it comes down to. So
Mhm.
obviously when you're a brand that has so much of this equity already, right? Like Wendy's has the ability to take chances like that because they're so large. But just consider how you can interact with the people that you service, the customers that you have in a relatable way. You don't have to be like a 20 something Gen Zer that understands every single joke that exists on the internet. Just so long as you understand the type of people that you sell to, you understand what their interests are, and you kind of pander to those interests. It doesn't have to be too complicated, but there is a lot of work that could go into something like that. So that's a good call out, Seth. I like the deeper discussion on brand. If you guys want to see more content on building a brand, because again, there is a lot of conversation there. There's so much that goes into it. Let me know. We are happy to kind of dive into that topic as well in future webinars. But moving on to the retention and loyalty stages. So I know I said I like to lump these two together because they're very similar in that retention implies that you're kind of keeping them on your customer track that they kind of repeat by, but loyalty implies that they are sort of evangelists for your brand, right? So they're the people that are going to do those testimonials or write good reviews or speak about you to their friends. And there's a lot of ways that you can engage with them in this realm, right? So I'd say the most important, first and foremost for every business, is to have some sort of low effort support option for your customers. So whether that be a chat bot or a bot that you man yourself and keep on top of. I think both of those options are really good. Chatbots can be sort of iffy here and there, but most people understand that it's the way of the world. They're going to be talking to an AI at some point. As long as you make it low effort, low friction, and give them the ability to get timely answers that aren't just like regurgitated nonsense from a help article or something like that. So I think that's what I would place at the top of the list, and obviously I put it at the top of the list for a reason. Is making sure that people have the support that they need when they need it. To go hand in hand with this, though, having refund policies, return policies that are easy to navigate, that aren't hidden behind some crazy page under your contact us that's like hard to find. Make it easy to find, make it prominent on your website, regardless of if you have a good refund policy or not. Chances are, if you have a bad refund policy, as long as you even just list it on the site, it's an improvement. Customers will see that they have the information that they need, and it instills that just a little bit of trust. But always just look to improve your refund and your return policies. Obviously, there's going to be some give and take there. Not everybody can afford to just do 100% refunds, no question asked. But just consider how you can improve that process and make that as seamless and hopefully as painless as possible for the end user.
By the way, on that point, the best thing I ever did was extend my refund policy from 30 days to 90 days and keep it no questions asked. I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me and said that they made their final decision when they were right on the edge to purchase it because they learned that I had that policy. And we do make it clear. The way I look at it, again, your brand being your personality, to make your refund policy really easy and obvious shows that you have that much confidence in your product that you're not worried about it. Right. Whereas when I see that a company is clearly making it difficult and kind of hiding it, it kind of says the opposite. It's kind of,
Yeah.
it's like that person who's clearly not confident in themselves at all. Right. Um, and interestingly, what I also noticed was after I extended it from 30 to 90 days, I had fewer refund requests than when it was only 30 days. And it's not a big stretch to understand why that might be, right? The
Yep.
reality is 30 days, it's my product are courses. So a lot of people, when they only have 30 days, probably don't even get into the course within 30 days, but they realize that the time is expiring. So they're like, I'm just going to ask for a refund because I don't know because I haven't had a chance to take the time yet. And the other reason behind it is that within 30 days, it's very front of mind. People remember. Within 90 days, they tend to kind of forget,
Put it on the back
90
burner.
days later.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's a great point. And obviously, depending on what you sell, there are some caveats here, right? Like if you
Yeah.
sell perishable items or things that don't really refund well, there's gonna be some more thought that you might need to put in to make sure that it works for you as much as it works for the customer. But to Seth's point, there is just like those trust signals or placing your add to cart button in the right area, it's all working in that subconscious ecosystem to give your business more credibility. And if you make your refund policy or your return policy hard to find, it doesn't take long for that kind of box to check in the back of the mind where it's like, should I even risk it? Do I want to
It
buy from this company?
it pisses people off
Yeah.
actually, especially if they're actually looking for it. That's why I also love the no questions asked. I don't want people to feel. Haven't you ever? I'm sure you've experienced this, John. I know I have, where I reach out to I log into a service, let's say, because I want to cancel it. I don't even want a refund. I just want to cancel it, and they make that difficult. And come to find out, I can't cancel the service without talking to somebody first. And
Yeah.
I get it. They want to try and keep my business, but sometimes I just know there's no way they're going to keep my business because the reason I want to cancel is because I simply don't have the need for the service anymore. And so when they start doing that kind of nonsense, it makes me lose total confidence in the
Hmm.
brand.
And you start dealing with stuff like chargebacks when you add barriers
Oh, you know what I
like
do
that,
now?
right?
I use Capital One has like the best virtual credit card system where you have a credit card and you can create an infinite number of virtual cards that are only good at the place that you use it at. So I use virtual cards now for everything. So if I make an honest effort to cancel a service and it becomes clear that they're making it difficult or I got to talk to somebody, it's simple. I just go into Capital One and I can either lock that virtual card or just remove it. And then they won't be able to charge me anymore ever again. They'll send me a bunch of emails saying, hey, we tried to charge your payment method. That'll go on for a month or two and then they'll give up and go away.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, and that's one way the Capital One is appeasing to that customer's life cycle because they understand that refunds and cancellations and stuff like that and ongoing charges are a pain point for
Well, and the real reason
everyday
for it is
users.
security, of course. So
That too, yeah.
if because I only have one credit card that's used on Amazon and it's only good on Amazon. So if Amazon's information gets breached, I don't have to worry other than somebody trying to buy something on Amazon with my card. And anyway, they don't do it so you can prevent companies from charging you, but it works that way anyway. It's a side benefit.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider that security, right? Like
Sure.
having the ability to not be strong armed by a company that's like making it hard for you to cancel, I think is a form of security for the end user. But
Yeah.
yeah, all this is to say that making things as painless as possible for your customers should be top of mind.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of the webinar, right? Is just making things seamless, making things flow well. So kind of on to the next thing, the the data that you have access to, the information that your stores or whatever tools you use can feed you can allow you to see things that you might not see with the naked eye, right? So we'll use Shopify as an example. If you have a Shopify store and you do thousands of orders a month, and then you have an Amazon store and you do thousands of orders a month, it can be really hard to look at both of those individually and kind of understand what the trends are because they kind of both live in their own ecosystem and most people aren't computers, right? We don't have the inherent ability to extrapolate data based off of large amounts of numbers. Some do maybe, but what you can do is use tools that allow you to look at that data centralized and look at it all in one place so that you're able to make effective decisions both for the stores that you own and that you have online, and understand what's selling well, what's not selling well, kind of pivot if you need to if certain items are just like tanking really bad on your Amazon store but they're doing really well on Shopify. So all that to say, it helps you understand your customers' buying practices, their trends. It helps you understand seasonality in your products, all of which means that you're able to get the stuff that your customers do want to them faster by making sure that it's available and not out of stock, and kind of remove the clutter or the things that they don't want. Speaking of things that they don't want, listening to customer feedback. This is something that is generally a little harder to do, I'd say, than some of the other stuff that we're talking about here because A lot of times customer feedback, it takes the form of like a really negative, really disingenuous Google review or something like that. And you're going to deal with that, right? Everybody has at some point had to deal with a disgruntled customer, whether they're correct or not, kind of giving you feedback that might not be super constructive. But you can do other things to get actual constructive feedback. Obviously, if you do have customers that are leaving you constructive criticism or feedback that actually helps you, that's great. But if you don't have that and you're looking for a way to get feedback, there are apps out there that exist or services out there that exist for people to go and review your site, review your products. Again, you can start to do those sponsored sort of posts that we were talking about on social media where somebody does get your product. They give an honest review. The only thing you're out is generally the product and maybe some ad revenue or ad spend.
So a couple of things on that. First of all, I would go as far as to solicit negative feedback from customers, because even if it's disingenuous, I've learned through direct experience, I can still use it to improve. In other words, if I look at that as, if I set aside the fact that it's very clear, and it usually is very clear when somebody's just venting, and it's not legitimate. But on the other side of that, I'm often looking at reviews of a product, and you could tell when the sort of lousy reviews are I was just looking at something this morning, in fact, and it was very clear that the negative reviews on this product were based on user error. I mean, it was a thing where this guy was, oh, I took pictures with it and they were out of focus. And it's like, well, because you probably didn't have the thing focused in the first place.
There's a lot
Anyway,
of
the point being,
that.
you can set aside the fact that it was clearly disingenuous and still analyze it from the standpoint of, does this point to something that I can improve?
Yeah,
I literally, in one product I was offering years ago, I literally tripled that product's revenue because I got definitely very disingenuous negative feedback. It was clear this person just didn't like me and wanted to sort of rip me a new one, so to speak. But what it really amounted to was I had a product that was appealing to people at all levels of experience. And what it really pointed to was I could break this up into 3 different products: beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and boom. And so literally turn one product into 3 behind exactly the kind of feedback that most people would be inclined to ignore. And so I've learned actually, and that's why I go back to what I originally said, which is I like the idea of actually soliciting the negative feedback, because that's what I can use to improve the most. The positive feedback's great. The testimonials, they feel good, but they literally don't help me improve because they don't point to anything that I can do better. They just tell me how wonderful I am, right? And by the way, going back to another Jay Abraham tip I learned, look at your competitors' negative feedback so that you can understand what their customers weren't getting that they were clearly expecting to. And then you can think in terms of, how can I offer that? How can I improve my experience based on making sure that I offer what these competitors clearly weren't or weren't doing well? So that's another, I love that tip from Jay Abraham, is you look at your competitors' negative feedback to see how you can do better and then go out and offer that.
I love that. Yeah, and not even just limiting it to looking at their negative feedback, but as a person in the industry, you probably should at least try to put yourself in the shoes of a customer purchasing from any of your competitors and understand where their shortcomings are. It's a little harder to distance yourself from your own process. So like if you
Yeah.
try to do that with your own website, it might be a little too close to home. But if you go and you try to purchase something from one of your competitors, maybe you don't need to actually purchase something, but at least go through the motions and understand what their buying process looks like. And if there is something that is causing friction for you or something that you like from an objective perspective don't like or don't enjoy, take that to heart and take that back to your own practice and kind of improve it if you can. So yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love looking at competitors in general. I think that's a really good way to understand how you can improve as a business and using feedback,
And
negative
one
review.
last tip on
Great.
that, if you're going to solicit negative feedback, give them a way to do it anonymously, because some people will be afraid to give you the negative feedback if you know who's giving it. So give them a way to do it anonymously and make it clear that it's anonymous.
Yeah, love that. Love that. And just to kind of wrap up the rest of the slide here, testimonials, kind of in the same vein, getting people to uh, give a not too short but not too long synopsis of their experience using your product and what it has done for them, benefits wise, the money that it saved them, the money that it's made them, whatever it is something that you can reuse a time and time again. You can put it on blog posts, you can put it on your homepage, you can put a whole testimonial page up on your website. You can do social posts on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of that stuff. allows you to reuse that content and kind of it goes back to brand awareness. So that's why this all is one big ecosystem, one big life cycle that every stage feeds into the next and so on. And then the last thing, rewards programs. This is something that maybe doesn't work for every single business, but if you have the ability to set up some sort of, we'll say like a punch card system like Dutch Brothers. I don't know if you guys know what Dutch Brothers is, really big on the West Coast for coffee. They were known for the longest time for having a punch card. If you got 10 orders, 10 punch cards, you got a free drink. Stuff like that can go a long way with customers. Again, not super applicable to every single business model out there, but it is something that you can employ to kind of drive that loyalty. Obviously, people will be loyal if they know that after a certain amount of purchases, they get something for free.
Also, if you have the budget, there are sites that make it really easy to reward people with merchandise. So, and they will effectively drop ship it where you kind of provide them with the designs, whatever. And so you can send people coffee mugs, t-shirts, what have you, based on hitting certain thresholds with you, dollar volume, or unit volume, whatever, however you want to define it. These services make it really easy. They handle it all for you. And the customer will just get a notification saying, hey, we're sending you some merchandise. And if it's a shirt, pick your size and enter your address and everything's paid for. We're going to send you, some merch to say thank you.
Nobody
So,
hates free things, right? And I
especially
had a
like things like
coworker.
coffee mugs and t-shirts, like
Yeah.
everybody loves that stuff because it's something you can always use.
Yeah, I had a coworker that liked to use the term surprise and delight, and that really resonated with me. I think that's a really good way to just like increase trust with your customers, increase loyalty, is just that surprise of like, hey, you've been a good customer to us. Here's how we're gonna repay you, whether that be merch, swag, whatever it is that you have, or something that even we at Webgility use is a company called Thanks, THNKS, that you can send virtual gift cards to people. A really good one is like there's a $5, $10 Starbucks gift card that you say like, hey, here's $5, $10 on me, go get a coffee. Stuff like that, no matter how small, generally does tend to, it makes people feel good. So
Yeah.
always something to consider. All right, and this is where we will get into some of the more specific tools. I don't know if anybody likes the 90s rap reference for "Don't Sweat the Technique," but I laughed when I did it. So, um, yeah. So before I jump into the specifics of the tools and all the tech, I want to make sure that everybody knows that if you have any questions, if you have anything that you want to know, kind of pick our brains, I do encourage that you engage whenever you feel is necessary. We have the dedicated Q&A session at the very end, but if you have any questions, anything that you want to know right now, feel free to drop it in the chat, drop it in the question and answer box. We're happy to answer it. We like to make these more of a conversation than us just kind of talking in your ear, right? So feel free to ask any questions you have. All right. So we'll talk about I'll kind of break this out into those same sort of categories that we had before, where it's that brand awareness or that reach sort of conversation, moving into the next status, which is that acquisition stage where they're becoming a customer, and then finally in the customer loyalty or customer service area. So starting with brand, if you're looking to build a brand or kind of build it out or improve it in some way, there's a lot of tools that you can use to accomplish that. Now, not all these tools are going to be cheap or affordable. Not all of them are going to be super expensive, but I included a number of the most popular options that are available. And generally, all these different tools have their free versions, their trials, their more pared down versions, and then all the way up to that enterprise level service there. So a lot of flexibility in these tools. This is just a good jumping off point for you to understand what tools are out there for you. So when we're talking about social media, building a specific brand around your business, two of the biggest names in the business are Hootsuite and Loomly. These tend to be a mixture of like social media management and like a CMS or a content management service, where you're able to kind of like I mentioned before, if you create a social post, you can have it I guess, organized into a blog post or into some other form of content that you can post somewhere else. So Hootsuite and Loomly, again, two of the biggest names in that space. A lot of flexibility there for you to be able to kind of streamline your social media, I guess, standing and make content that is easy and can be resyndicated, is the way I like to say it. In terms of search engines, three of the biggest names are SEMrush, Ahrefs, and Keyword.com. A lot of businesses use a conjunction of these. It's generally not just one or even two of these. There's a combination of multiple tools happening depending on how big you are. But all of these options will give you a lot of flexibility in tailoring your keyword and search engine strategy. Listing optimization, I know I mentioned making sure that your descriptions and your titles and maybe your images and stuff are as optimized as possible. Bird eye and reputation. Reputation falls more under the sort of like review area, but it is something that allows you to optimize your brand on your website or on your store. And then I always like to include places to get stock assets, things that allow you to not have to put the work in to take your own pictures or take your own video, because Lord knows that's a really exhaustive process. Adobe stock and Envato Elements. I personally use Envato Elements, and then I use Adobe stock here and there, but lots of plan options. Works off of a credit system usually, or just a monthly payment where you can purchase the rights for a specific stock image, B-roll, whatever it is that you're looking for, and put that on your site for more credibility. Because the higher resolution the videos are on your site, or the higher resolution the images are on your site, the better it looks, the more professional you look, the more that that subconscious brain is ticking for the customer that you are a business to be trusted.
By the way, I've used Hootsuite, of course. Loomly, I've never heard of. I actually just went there and bookmarked it while you were talking because it looks like something I
They're
want to check
targeting
out.
the Hootsuite market very heavily right now. I don't know how new they are. I've heard of them before. I did a little research on them, and yeah, it seems that they're one of the bigger competitors to Hootsuite right now. So,
Yeah. Um, and then I use Ahrefs and I absolutely love it. It is such a cool tool.
yep.
I can tell you so many ways I've used it, but bottom line, like if you want to produce content and you want people to, or you want to get a sense of what people are searching for, so you can figure out what kind of content to produce, Ahrefs is amazing for that. You can do all kinds of things with it, where you can even drop the URL of, let's say, a competitor's website where you know they have a lot of good content, and it will analyze their site and show you what keywords they're optimized for and how much traffic they're getting from each of those. So you can do a lot of really cool sort of deep level research on keywords and other kinds of things. So you can, I have a library now of ideas for articles I want to write and videos that I want to do to go with them based on that kind of research that I use Ahrefs for. It's such a cool app. It's amazing.
Yep. Ahrefs and SEMrush are both industry staples, especially in the SaaS, the software as a service, which is what Webgility falls under. Huge, very beneficial tools. Can't recommend them enough.
Yeah. And going back up to the social media ones for everybody watching, one of the keys here that speaks very much to what we're talking about here in the bigger picture is if you're looking to sort of build your brand and brand awareness, and if you are interested in sort of getting that feedback that we talked about from your audience, and then there's like reputation management, which is another factor in this, where you're actually looking for, you want to get sort of notified if somebody's writing negatively about your brand so that you can go in there and try and make it right for the person. If somebody comes in and I had somebody write a scathing negative review about one of my courses, and I just wrote a reply to him and said, and I said, and by the way, this kind of ends up making them look bad because it makes it look like they're just trying to rip you a new one and they're not actually looking for a solution. But I just told the truth, and I said, hey, all you had to do is reach out to us, and we have a 90-day no questions asked refund policy if you weren't happy with the course, and then I asked him, I said, why didn't you let us know? Right. It kind of, and that kind of leaves it out there, unless he removes his review, it kind of makes it clear that he didn't bother to try and get a solution. He just went straight for the jugular.
Yeah.
And it kind of, in effect, it discredits his negative review by me going out there and being honest and saying, we have a policy. All you had to do is reach out and ask, and we would have taken care of it.
Yeah, not only that, not only the discrediting part, but to go back to sort of what we were talking about before, where um, your the way that you present yourself as a business in these situations gives you credibility. So regardless of if it was a disingenuous or scathing review or something that wasn't constructive criticism, or if there was no credibility to it whatsoever, the way that you can tactfully respond to customers or situations like that gives customers a lot more confidence that they're buying from somewhere that they can trust. Because if
Yeah.
you act like a human and you are doing the best that you can to make sure that your customer gets the results they need, then people will see that. It's pretty obvious.
Yeah. And you remove like what I did there. Of course, I was heated when I first saw the review, especially when I realized
Who
I
wouldn't
checked
be?
I checked my records. There was no record of this person ever reaching out to me and trying to get any kind of satisfaction about it. But then I removed the emotion from it, and I wrote that reply just saying, because I checked my email history. It's the first thing I do. Email is a great database. I put the name in my search, not a single email from the person ever, tried it a few different ways. And so once I confirmed that the person had definitely never reached out to me, I just wrote that reply saying, hey, why didn't you reach out to us? We would have given you a refund, no questions asked.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the perfect way to handle it. And like I said, yeah, I think just responding in that way, whether you're in the wrong or whether they're being disingenuous or not, I think is the best way to handle it because it just makes you look good as a business in general.
Yep.
All right, and moving on to the engagement with leads and customers. So this is that conversion and like lead capture area. So one thing that I will always recommend is that you use, depending on how many customers you have. I mean, if you've only got a handful or you're servicing a very small segment of customers, maybe you have high volume but a low amount of customers. CRM might not be for you, but a CRM or a customer relationship manager, a place that stores all of your leads is a really good place to start. A lot of times, CRMs aren't just a repository of your customer data. They tend to have a lot more functionality, including things like email marketing or content management, where you're able to post directly to social. Some of them have built-in ticket systems for support. So it really depends on how much you want to scale it. But a lot of these, especially the big name CRMs like HubSpot, which Webgility uses, or Salesforce is another big one. They include a lot of that supplementary functionality that I'm going to talk about sort of after these. But always good to look at just places that you can store your customer data. If you are talking from an accounting perspective, you'll have customer data in the form of like addresses, names, stuff like that in your accounting system. But if you want to get more on a personal level and understand like buying habits, the uh, amount that they've spent on certain things, these CRMs can help you kind of build that out and build like a persona around your customer base. And as mentioned, standalone marketing email tools, if you don't want to go the whole bundle route and use a big expensive CRM, you can use things like MailChimp, Bird, Klaviyo. They're all really good services to just send email blasts. As long as you have the email addresses and you've gotten explicit consent that you're able to email them. Again, can't stress it enough. Make sure you get consent to email people before you spam them. Um, as long as you have their email addresses, you can set up drip campaigns, set up sequences, and get those emails out. So you're spreading that brand awareness or those deals or whatever it is that you're trying to do. Um, to go back to, I know in my previous slide I put this at the top, is the support options. I've made a habit of using or listing some of the stuff that Webgility uses because I want to show that these are real utilitarian softwares or tools that you can use. Webgility uses Intercom. If you go to our website, at the very bottom, you'll see a chat bubble pop up, and that is what Intercom does. Most sites have this. Most like content management systems or CRMs will have some sort of this functionality built in as a chatbot as well. But things like Font, Intercom, Jira allow you to create either like a ticketing system or a support system for people if they have issues. They allow you to set up those chat interactions, whether it's a chat bot or you're manning it or having somebody else man it. Having that, again, that frontline support level where people can go and get an immediate answer or at least voice their questions, their grievances, whatever it is that they need help with, without having to like fumble with a bunch of menus or go to an email contact page on your website. Having something super easily accessible at the bottom of your site with like just a chat bubble makes it so easy. Um, I think if I go to a website and they don't have some sort of chat, I don't exit out. That's not the only thing that I care about. But if I don't see it, I do kind of log that in the back of my mind. If I have any issues, then I'm like less inclined to kind of continue down the rabbit hole at that point.
They're also something to look at. A lot of, with AI like exploding the way it is, there are a lot of AI based tools now where you can, if you have the patience and the sort of bandwidth to take the time to set this up, you can set up these AI-based chatbots where you just have to feed it all the information it needs. And obviously that's going to be incremental and cumulative, but where these chatbots can really interact with people and give them answers. Most of the time I go into a chat, and if I realize it's not a live person, which it usually isn't at first, you have to ask for that, I get very, very sort of poor responses, and it's usually not relevant to what I'm really looking for help with, and I just have to ask for an agent. But these AI chatbots are giving you the ability to empower that chatbot by, again, feeding it with the knowledge base that it needs to be able to respond to people. So for like in my own case, if somebody's chatting with us and saying, hey, what's your refund policy, the chatbot can be trained to automatically tell it, oh, it's 90 days, no questions asked, things like that, where like the very common questions. And then even if somebody is asking for a refund, I can train it to capture their email address and have them confirm that this is the email address they use in our system, because that comes up sometimes. People have like 3 different email addresses. I don't know why. Um, and they and so they give us their email, and it's not the one in our system. So anyway, we can have an account for that, have them feed the email address, and then I'll get a message, or Mary, my assistant, will get the message. So we know whose account to kind of look up and issue the refund and then confirm to them. So if you search for like AI knowledge base or things along those lines, you'll find a lot of tools now that are getting more and more popular, where they can really become like an AI based support agent for you.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's important to note is that you're not always going to have somebody that can man the front lines and answer questions immediately. Having something set up so that you can at least field the easy questions and the things that people are going to ask more frequently is definitely a winning strategy. And I know we're running a little short on time, so I'll kind of get through the rest of these slides and allow people to ask questions. I saw, Mike, you did have a question. I read the question, and I know you said you don't need me to respond on the webinar. I will respond right now, though. Just for those that are watching and can't see the chat, Mike has he's B2B only currently, considering moving from B2B, but also to B2C, has Amazon and Shopify. Currently, he's asking about Webgility. Webgility does not carry invoice specific terms from Shopify to QuickBooks Online. This is actually very top of mind for me. I've been working with a partner of ours on our new Lightspeed connection for POS. And sort of a pain point that they had as well was that we couldn't carry invoice terms into QBO and repost them once that invoice has been paid back to the point of origination, or in this case, Lightspeed. It sounds like that's exactly what we're talking about as well. This is something that I talked about with the team on the Lightspeed integration specifically, and I'm happy to talk to the team, the development team for our QuickBooks Online integration about that functionality for Shopify as well. I think it makes sense. I think being able to pull invoice data into QuickBooks is good, but making sure that we're able to push that back and have it be a two-way street when those invoices get paid, and make sure that that connection is complete for those terms is important. So thanks for asking that question, Mike. I will follow up with you and just make sure everybody's aware of your feedback there. Cool. And the last section here is sort of becoming adaptable. This idea that you can use all these tools and you can have everything set up, but there's going to be things there's going to be curveballs that come your way that you need to overcome, right? Things that you need to adapt to. One of these ways, and it's a good segment from Mike. Thank you again for your feedback. That you should probably connect your accounting to your online stores, even if it's not an online store. If you have a brick and mortar and you use a POS system, make sure that it's connected. That's what Webgility does. For those of you who aren't aware, we are an accounting e-commerce connector. We pull your order data, your expense data, anything that we can from your online store or your brick and mortar, and we push it into QuickBooks so that you can track it and make sure that it's all in one place. Helps segment tax and stuff like that as well. We aren't the only people in the space to do this. There are a number of other softwares that do exactly what we do. There are also free connectors inside of QuickBooks that do the same thing as well, or free connectors from Shopify. There's a lot of options for you to connect your accounting to your e-commerce store. It all just matters what exactly you want to get out of it and how much, I guess, mileage you need out of it. So again, all this to say, make things easier for yourself. If you don't already have things connected, integrated, it's time to start looking at that. Whether it's your accounting or your shipping and fulfillment or any number of things that you spend manual or time doing manually inside of your business, there's probably something that you can do to streamline it or automate it in some way. That isn't to say that you need to automate out your workforce and fire your employees. It just means that you can spend a little money to save a lot more money on that manual labor and have the people that you already employ do things that maybe can't be done automatically or things that require a little bit more of a human touch. Spend time that you would otherwise be spending kind of growing your business or ideating or making sure that you're moving the business forward rather than spending so much time on labor for things like just manually posting your orders from QuickBooks, or manually printing shipping labels and making sure things are fulfilled. So first point there. The next point, and I kind of talked about this a little bit in a previous slide, but utilize reporting as much as you can. Understand exactly where your business is at from a profitability standpoint, from an expense standpoint. Understand what you're losing money on, which products have been sitting for too long, which products have been selling really well. Making sure that you have a consistent feed of data from your stores into wherever you want to look at your data. It doesn't matter. But as long as you have a place where you can look at everything from a high level and understand what's performing, what's not, and where you can go from there is super important. I feel like there's a lot of people that really don't grasp that you have all this information generally at your fingertips already, even if you're not paying for a data analytics tool or software. If you're using Shopify or Amazon, they have reports built in. If you're using QuickBooks, it has reports built in so you can see your profit and loss. You can see exactly what's been selling, what's not been selling, what gets refunded more often than not. And that gives you a really good idea of where you need to reinvest in or where you need to pull back in the times where things aren't maybe panning out like they should. Sort of in the same context, using Google Analytics, understand trends on Google, not even just for your business, but understanding your niche, understanding the market that you're in and how other people are interacting with that content or those products and what they're looking for, what they're searching is going to give you an idea of where to position yourself and understand where your customers are at. And then sort of to harken back to our last webinar a couple weeks ago, make sure you're selling on more than one place. Not necessarily that you have to be selling on any 3 or 4 channels or that you need to be selling on TikTok Shop or need to be selling on Shopify, but if you're listed in some of these top areas, Shopify is a little different because you still need your own organic reach. You're not really relying on their marketplace, but having a TikTok Shop or an Amazon or a Walmart means that you are diversifying your reach. You're existing in more than one place. You're giving yourself that credibility that you sell in a bunch of these places, and people understand that you're a big business. You know what you're doing. So all these things packaged together. I know we talked about a lot. We've covered a lot of tools, a lot of different techniques, but it's all just to make sure that you're creating a seamless loop for your customers or your potential customers, so that they feel compelled to buy after they find your business. And then once they're compelled to buy, they feel compelled to continue to buy or to evangelize your product or your service and kind of shout your name from the rooftops, which drives other people to enter that life cycle. And it's a nice, beautiful circle of life, as Lion King would put it. And that's enough rambling for me. We will jump into the Q&A. I haven't seen that people have had a lot of questions, so this might be a really quick Q&A, but now is the time to ask any questions you have, even if it's not related to the webinar. If you have something that you want to ask Seth, if you have something that you want to ask me, we are happy to answer your questions. If there's anything with your Webgility subscription, again, as you saw with Mike, I am happy to answer that. I am here for you. So fire away if you do have them. If not, I'll give it a minute, and then there's a resource page that I want to share with you guys. It'll be in the PowerPoint slide deck when I send it out as well.
All right, and John, while we're waiting, I have a question for you, which is who's your favorite Muppet and why?
I'd say Oscar. I've always really resonated with Oscar the Grouch.
I like it. I like it. All right, looks like it's quiet.
Yeah, quiet today, which is fine. I mean, that means that hopefully we answered all of your questions before you had them.
I'm going to go with the theory that people were so blown away today that they're just overwhelmed and they can't even think of a question.
I believe it. I believe it. We did have a small hiccup, I guess, with our invites going out. It looks like some people didn't get the invites until a little later into the webinar, but Cool. I will end it here with the resources page. Again, this is going to be sent out with the recording, with the webinar. Everything is going to be accessible to you. You can click the thumbnails on all of these or the links directly in them. But just to go through it, our previous webinar, just to recap, we talked about multi-channel expansion, understanding which stores are out there, which stores might be more profitable for you to jump to, and why it's good to be, I guess, present on other stores or sales channels. And then I included 2 blog posts directly from Webgility that are really relevant to the conversation we had today. We did one for 21 effective strategies to increase your e-commerce sales. It kind of touches on a lot of the stuff that we talked about today, but it puts it in a succinct list for you so you can kind of peruse those and maybe kind of start to work on some of the things that are suggested in the blog post. The other blog post is for reducing cart abandonment rates. I know we talked about making that buying process as seamless and effective as possible. That blog will teach you some ways to make sure that you're retaining that, I guess, that grip or that attention from your customers, because you know that we live in a very low attention span world, or short attention span world. And then the last thing, I always want to plug Seth's business. Thank you for being here, Seth. Always appreciate your conversation. He has a 97 and up academy. It's a good place for bookkeeping, accounting professionals to kind of mastermind, be a part of a group of like-minded individuals. I don't know if you wanted to say a couple words about it, Seth.
Yeah, no, I mean, you know what? Kind of going back to something we shared already today. You can try free for 30 days. And then it's month to month. So you can try it for as long as you want, pay monthly, and then just let us know if you want to cancel at any time. And Mary, my assistant, will take care of that right away. So you could try it for 90 days. It includes 2 live weekly calls that we do, which are recorded, and you have access to the entire library from back to like 2018 when we started. All the calls we've ever done, and it's in a searchable database. So you can search by topic. And then, of course, you get deep discounts on all the courses that we release. So major bulletproof bookkeeping courses, I always launch them and give a discount to 97 and up members. And you get a lot of courses included for free. Also, when you join, you'll see your course library on my site just kind of fill up with courses. It's pretty awesome, if I may say so.
Yeah, I love it. Love the little shameless plug. And for Webgility shameless plug, obviously we are in the accounting e-commerce connector business. If you wanted to schedule a demo, you can go to webgility.com. There's schedule a demo or start a free trial directly on our website. You can email me with any questions you have. My email is john.may@webgility.com. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the chat just in case anybody forgets it. We've been in the habit of doing these webinars every couple of weeks, so the next one should be on the 5th of June. We're locking in the subject matter for it today. We've had some things move around here, so we want to make sure that we're getting things top of mind for you guys. If you have any suggestions or things that you want to talk about, I know I mentioned it earlier, but we are all ears. We want to make sure that we're bringing you guys content that's valuable to you, things that you want to know about and have conversations about. So I appreciate everybody coming in today. I look forward to hopefully seeing you guys on the next one. I generally take about a day to get it processed, put onto YouTube, and sent out in an email. So look forward to that within the next 24, maybe a little bit more hours. You'll see the email with the recording of the webinar and the a link to the PowerPoint, so you can kind of, if you'd rather read than listen. Where can we sign up for the email list on 97 and up? This link should take you directly to the 97 and up page.
Yep.
And I'm gonna drop the link in chat real quick if I can.
Yeah,
It
you
won't
can
let me
also just go
exit
to
full screen.
97 and up, all spelled out.com. The
Oh,
number
perfect.
97 and up.com. It'll redirect you to the same page. Check that out. And also, if you go just to nerdenterprises.com, you'll see a little ribbon at the top that invites you to take a free 30-day trial. And then that gets you a discounted price. So you actually want to do it that way. See where it says try 97 and up for 30 days for free at the very, very top? There. Click that one. Once you click on it, it starts a countdown timer. So you have, like, I think it's 4 days or something to take advantage of it.